Well, you couldn't have had a better day. I mean, first off, today, it's always awesome to get on the grass with your players. I mean, how cool is this? You have the guys that we drafted along with the free agent signees, and then, a bunch of guys, tryout guys that are trying to make our team want to be a Cleveland Brown, which is really cool. They've got a coach me, coach mentality, which you'd love to see. Guys that want to be coached, want to be pushed, and so it's been a lot of fun.
There is something happening inside Berea right now that Browns fans should not ignore. And honestly, after listening to Todd Monken's latest press conference, it feels like this coaching staff already sees the blueprint for what they want this football team to become. This was not just another boring rookie minicamp update where coaches throw around generic compliments and tell everybody to relax. No, Todd Monken sounded like a coach who already sees certain players separating themselves mentally. He sounded like someone quietly building an entirely different identity for this Browns offense. And if you paid close attention to the details, there were multiple moments during this press conference where you could almost hear the future of the team being laid out right in front of us.
I think efficiency-wise, the guys handled the installs over the last couple days at a really high level.
The biggest thing that jumped out immediately was the energy Monken had talking about the rookies and the overall efficiency of camp. He kept emphasizing how much he loved finally getting on the grass with these guys. And honestly, you could hear genuine excitement in his voice. He talked about the drafted players, the undrafted free agents, and even the tryout guys like they all mattered. That is important because great coaches create competition from the bottom of the roster all the way to the top. Monken made it clear this rookie group came in with the exact mentality he wants. Coach me, push me, demand more from me. Those were basically the traits he kept describing over and over again. That tells you the Browns are trying to build a culture where development matters just as much as raw talent. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Monken was also quietly calling out the players at the same time. He admitted there were periods during practice where the tempo was not what he wanted, especially during the ACT periods focused on alignment, communication, and technique. Most fans probably skipped right over that part, but it matters a lot because Monken basically said it was his fault for allowing the intensity to stay too high during periods that were supposed to be more mental than physical. That tells you two things immediately. First, these players are competing hard. Second, Monken is trying to create discipline within that competitiveness. He wants controlled aggression. He wants players pushing each other while still understanding situational football and practice structure. That is championship level coaching detail.
Periods previous, including yesterday, and none of them were really at the tempo that I desired. So it was really poor on my part to allow it to keep going, but really at the end, it's more of a jog through. Again, a mental sweat. Alignment, communication, technique more than, really trying to tax our guys.
And honestly, this is where young players usually make a mistake. They think NFL coaches only care about highlight plays, but Monken's entire press conference showed the opposite. He repeatedly focused on communication, alignment, cadence, progression reads, and understanding responsibilities. That is why he sounded so impressed with certain rookies already. He does not just want athletes, he wants processors. He wants guys who can absorb information quickly and apply it immediately on the field. That is exactly why his comments about the quarterbacks became so fascinating later in the press conference. When Monken started talking about the young quarterbacks, especially Taylen Green, you could tell he genuinely liked what he was seeing. He admitted the cadence was rough early on. He called it choppy, but then he immediately praised how much better it looked the next day. That matters because it shows improvement in real time. Coaches love fast learners. Monken specifically pointed out Green's ability to work through progressions and process information quickly. That is not a small compliment. Processing speed is one of the hardest things to teach at the NFL level. Physical traits can get you drafted, but decision-making keeps you employed. And Monken basically told everybody he is already seeing encouraging signs there. This is where it gets dangerous for the rest of the AFC if Cleveland develops these quarterbacks properly, because Monken also talked about tightening up Green's release and speeding up the ball delivery on checkdowns and shorter throws. That tells you exactly where they are in the development process. They're not rebuilding the player from scratch. They are refining details. And when you have a quarterback with size, athleticism, and arm talent, refinement is where things can suddenly explode. Monken even admitted he was super impressed with Green's ability to learn, process, and take coaching onto the field quickly. Browns fans should not ignore wording like that. Coaches are careful with praise during rookie minicamp. When they start sounding genuinely impressed this early, something is standing out internally. But the most fascinating part of the entire press conference might have been how Monken described the evolution of football itself. This man practically gave a roadmap for what he wants the Browns offense to become over the next few years. He talked about how football moved away from downhill pro style systems into spread concepts, where fullbacks disappeared and giant linebackers stopped existing. Then he explained how the league is slowly turning back towards bigger bodies, tight ends, physicality, and gap-creating football. That is not random commentary. Coaches reveal their vision through conversations like that. Monken is telling us exactly where he thinks the NFL is going, and exactly where he wants Cleveland to go with it.
Well, I wouldn't say Kyle started that, because there's been a number of guys his size that enables you to be able to play dime and kind of have the size of a linebacker, but have the ability to cover. Kyle could gain 10 or 20 pounds and play will linebacker if he wanted to.
And suddenly, a lot of the Browns' offseason moves start making way more sense. Bigger receivers, more versatile tight ends, more emphasis on physicality, more focus on chess piece players who can line up everywhere. Monken specifically talked about players who can move around the field and create matchup problems. He referenced Kyle Hamilton-type versatility, and even brought up how San Francisco uses its fullback in multiple ways instead of just as a blocker. That is massive because it confirms Cleveland wants flexibility everywhere. They don't want predictable personnel anymore. They want players defenses can't easily identify before the snap.
Well, you can see his catch radius. That's what you can see. He does have quick feet. Getting off the line of scrimmage, you can see that. He's, again, does a really good job getting in and out of breaks for someone with his length.
Here's the part nobody is talking about. Denzel Boston might be one of the biggest keys to unlocking this entire offensive identity. Monken couldn't stop praising Boston's movement skills during rookie camp. He talked about the catch radius first, because obviously everybody notices that immediately, but then he started talking about the quick feet, the release off the line, and how smooth Boston looked getting in and out of breaks despite his size. That is where things get really interesting. Big receivers who move like smaller receivers create nightmares for defenses. If Boston continues developing the route running side of his game, Cleveland could suddenly have a receiver who completely changes how teams defend them.
And Monken seemed genuinely excited about Boston's potential, even though he admitted the offense did not throw much during certain practice periods. That is important because it means the evaluation went beyond catches. The Browns are looking at movement patterns, footwork, body control, understanding spacing, and overall football intelligence. Those are the things that determine whether a rookie eventually becomes a real contributor or just another athletic project. Monken basically confirmed Boston already flashes traits they believe can translate into the offense immediately. This is where it gets dangerous for players lower on the depth chart, because Monken repeatedly emphasized versatility and adaptability. He does not sound interested in one-dimensional players anymore. He wants guys who can move around, block, create mismatches, and stay on the field regardless of situation. That philosophy changes roster battles completely. Suddenly, players who can wear multiple hats gain enormous value, and you can already see Cleveland building toward that style. Bigger personnel, more physicality, multiple tight ends, hybrid defensive pieces, position flexibility everywhere. That is not accidental roster construction. That is coordinated vision between the front office and coaching staff. And speaking of hybrid players, Monken sounded almost fascinated discussing Emmanuel and some of the defensive versatility Cleveland is building. He praised Emmanuel's length, speed, range, and physicality, but what stood out most was how much he kept talking about the player's attitude and love for football. That phrase kept coming up repeatedly during the press conference. Loves football, loves competing, smiles every day, ready to go. That is clearly something Monken values heavily. He wants energy guys. He wants players obsessed with improving. He wants emotional investment in the game itself. That is exactly why his comments about Justin Jefferson and Quincy Williams felt so important too. Monken basically lit up talking about guys who show up excited to practice. He described them as jocked up and ready to go every day. That may sound simple, but coaches absolutely notice energy and enthusiasm, especially during off-season programs. Veteran coaches can tell quickly which players genuinely love football versus which players are just going through the motions. Monken practically said you can feel those personalities the second they walk onto the practice field. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They underestimate how much coaches value energy, communication, and consistency before the pads even come on. Everyone wants to talk about 40 times and vertical jumps, but Monken spent most of this press conference talking about mentality, learning, communication, discipline, versatility, football intelligence, love of the game. Those are the themes he kept returning to. That tells you the Browns are trying to build something sustainable, not just flashy. The offensive line discussion was another huge clue about where this team is heading. Monken talked about Austin Barber potentially becoming a swing player, capable of handling multiple positions. Again, versatility. He talked about wanting more options and more pieces to work with because it is dangerous when a roster lacks flexibility. That mindset applies across the entire roster right now. Cleveland does not want to get trapped anymore. They want adaptability everywhere, so injuries or matchups
matchup problems do not completely derail the offense like they have in previous seasons. And honestly, the more Monken talked, the more this entire offseason started sounding like a massive culture reset disguised as a rookie minicamp. This was not just about evaluating rookies. This was about establishing standards immediately. Compete hard, but practice smart. Learn fast, process information quickly, love football, be versatile, bring energy every day. Those are not temporary minicamp talking points. Those are foundational principles. And if the Browns actually get everybody buying into that mentality, this roster could become way more dangerous than people expect. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Monken sounds incredibly comfortable right now. That might be the biggest takeaway from the entire press conference. He sounds like a coach who finally has pieces he can mold. He sounds energized by the flexibility of the roster. He sounds excited about teaching again. Sometimes you can tell when coaches are forcing optimism during bad roster situations. This did not sound forced. He genuinely sounded excited about the possibilities of what this team could become over the next couple years. And that matters, because the Browns have spent years trying to establish a true offensive identity. Sometimes they looked finesse, sometimes they looked overly conservative, sometimes they looked completely disconnected from the roster strengths. But Monken is describing a very specific vision now. Bigger bodies, versatility, physical football, smart quarterbacks, multi-purpose players, play action stress, position flexibility. That identity actually fits the modern AFC better than people realize, because defenses have become lighter and faster over the last decade trying to stop spread offenses. Physical football can punish those defenses if executed correctly. This is where it gets dangerous for the rest of the division if Cleveland finally gets this right. Imagine an offense that can line up in heavy personnel and bully you downhill, then spread you out with versatile weapons and attack vertically off play action. Imagine quarterbacks processing quickly and getting the ball out efficiently, while bigger receivers create matchup nightmares outside. That sounds a lot closer to what Monken wants than the inconsistent offense Browns fans have suffered through for years. And honestly, the scariest part might be how early some of these rookies already seem to be adapting mentally. Monken repeatedly praised how quickly guys handled the installs and how coachable they looked. Rookie minicamp is usually messy. Guys line up wrong constantly, communication breaks down, players panic mentally because the NFL pace overwhelms them. But Monken sounded impressed by how quickly this group absorbed information. That could become massive later when training camp battles really intensify. Because make no mistake, real battles are coming. The Browns have more competition now than they have at several positions in years. Receiver spots, tight end roles, offensive line flexibility, quarterback development, hybrid defensive packages. Monken basically confirmed the roster suddenly has options everywhere, and competition changes everything inside a building. Players either elevate or disappear when true competition arrives. The legacy angle here is huge, because this press conference felt like the beginning of something bigger than rookie minicamp. Todd Monken sounded like a coach trying to reshape the DNA of the offense itself, not tweak it, not slightly improve it, reshape it. He wants versatility, intelligence, physicality, passion, development. And if Cleveland finally aligns the front office, coaching staff, and player mentality around that identity, this team could become a legitimate long-term contender instead of another talented roster that never fully comes together. So now the real question becomes whether these young players can turn early praise into actual production once the veterans arrive and the intensity ramps up, because rookie minicamp optimism means nothing if it disappears in August. But if Monken is right about these guys processing quickly and embracing coaching, Cleveland might have quietly assembled one of the most intriguing young foundations in the AFC. And honestly, after listening to this press conference, it feels like Todd Monken knows that too. The confidence in his voice was impossible to miss. He sees the vision already. Now Browns fans are waiting to see if the roster can bring that vision to life before the rest of the league realizes what might be building in Cleveland.